everybody, I'm Z Garcia.
I'm Tom Vasel.
Today we are taking a look at Marvel Remix. This is a reworking of a very popular game, an award-nominated game called
Fantasy Realms.
Realms.
Is there a reason it's called Remix?
No, I don't. I think it's just because you mix your team up in your hand. I guess that's what they mean by that.
Okay.
Remix
it just seems like
your team, you know? Fantasy Realms is a game in which you are combining cards in your hand to try to get the best combination, i.e. the most victory points for that. This is based on that. New theme, a couple of small tweaks. Before we keep going, though, let's go ahead and show you on the table. I'll give you an overview of what this looks like, how it plays. We'll come on back. To set up the game, we're going to shuffle up the Remix deck of cards here and shuffle up the Villain deck, set them out side by side, and deal each player playing 6 Remix cards and 1 Villain card. And you are ready to begin. The game is going to be played very simply by, on your turn, each player drawing a card from either this deck or this deck, and then discarding a card into a common discard display. You can also, instead of doing that, take a card from the discard pile and then discarding a different one. It has to be a different one in that case. You cannot simply delay the game by picking one up and discarding the same one. But you can, when you draw from here or from here, discard that card if it doesn't suit your needs. And the game is going to be over when there are 10 cards in this face-up display, the discard display. So, what you are attempting to do is have cards that have some synergy so that you can score as many victory points as possible. You will also be required to have in your hand, in order to score any points at all, at least 1 villain and at least 1 hero or ally. If you have that satisfied, then you can go ahead and score. If you do not satisfy that, you get 0 points. You cannot possibly win. So the different cards will have a few pieces of information. So let's take a look here at She-Hulk. There's a number up here that tells you their base score. She's worth 4 victory points. It's a hero card. And then there's going to be some text down here, possibly, that will modify further what points you can earn, as well as some tags down the side. And many cards will reference these tags to take away points, to give you more points, to create combinations of scoring possibilities. So She-Hulk over here says that she's worth 4, but you get plus 5 points for each other of these gamma symbols. So not her own, she won't score this one, but every other one, she'll give you another 5 points. And some cards, such as Toad here, a villain, will give you 14 victory points, has this mutant tag on it, and then it says it's blanked unless it's with another villain that has this tag. So blanked is an effect you need to watch out for because it simply means this card is completely ignored. It has nothing on it. And if this is the only villain I had and it was blanked, I'd have no villain and therefore would score 0 points. So you'll take a look at everything you've got here. There will be a few different types of cards, conditions, locations, allies, heroes, and you are going to draw. So I might, for example, draw a card here from the Remix deck. It is a location called Halls of Asgard, and it says I get plus 9 for each other of these Asgardian type symbols, all right? And there's a city symbol there as well. So I might look at my hand here and think, well, unless I go heavy into that symbol, I am not really going to be using that card very much. So perhaps I'll discard that one. And it'll be my opponent's turn. So they'll take a look at what they've got. They don't have any of those Asgardian cards either. They do have Krakoa here, the Living Island. It's plus 5 for each of these mutant symbols. So that might be a good card for me to hang my strategy on. I've got 1 here on Shadowcat, and she's plus 4 with any location. So that's a good combination. I can start from there. And then I'll draw a card. Maybe it'll be a mutant. Okay, it's not a mutant. I could perhaps then let something else go, check what else I've got going on. Spider-Man here is good with these flight symbols, and then locations with that city symbol on them, with that tag. So maybe I don't want Spider-Man, maybe I'll discard him. And this continues. Again, I could choose to draw a card from the discard pile here and discard a different one, like so, if I want to. That obviously keeps the number of cards here at the same. But other than that, you will continue to do that until we've got 10 out here, and then the game is over. Whenever you draw a card from one of these piles, you do not necessarily have to discard the same type of card. So I could draw a villain and then discard a card from the remix deck, like this. Once the end game is triggered, you'll pull out the handy-dandy score pad here, and then go through the cards and score all 7 and see what score you get. Ideally, my recommendation is check your cards first and see if any of them are blanked so you can forget about that. And then secondly, check if any of them give you bonus tags, bonus symbols here, so you can account for that as well whenever that comes up, okay? As long as you're systematic with this scoring, it shouldn't be too difficult to get that right. All right, so there you go. That is Marvel Remix. So let's talk about it. First of all, we should probably talk about whether we like the old one, whether we liked Fantasy Realms, and its first spin-off, Star Trek something.
Yeah, so I forget what it's called, Away Missions or something, but I love Fantasy Realms.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I like that game.
I didn't like it was like one of my complaints, it's very generic. You know, the most generic of themes. But I like Fantasy Realms. I like the expansion. I'm not sure you ever played the expansion.
I don't know if I did. Something
came out in 2020.
The Dragon's Horde or something. I don't think I played it.
I very much disliked
You were going to say
Star
hated.
Trek.
Just say it.
I know, because I think that might be too strong a word.
I heavily disliked it. That's what you were going to say.
Well, I can quickly explain why. Because the Star Trek had 2 different decks, which this one does too.
Yeah.
Although this one's basically another card, not another deck.
Yeah, they want them findable, I guess. Yeah.
But Star Trek had no base points on any of the cards. Everything was bonuses. Everything was bonuses, so you had to, you had to put, this card was nothing unless it was with these cards, and this card was nothing if it was with these. And also the icons were very difficult to tell apart, and it just felt like a mess. What I liked about Fantasy Realms is I get a card and I go, oh, this is 15 base points.
Right.
I start from there. Then I look at the special abilities, but at least I have some concept of how good it is.
I agree, and I think I did not play that Star Trek one, but well, for one thing, I'm not as big a fan of Star Trek. I just don't really care for that IP. But I also like the idea of the card, you drawing a card and it's saying, this is worth 22 points. You're like, oh my goodness, 22 points. And then you check the text and you're like, oh, but it takes like minus 10 for each of these things you have. It's like, okay.
Now, I did notice
but I can work from there.
In this one, in Marvel Remix, the points are toned down from Fantasy Realms.
For sure. Fantasy Realms has crazy values. Like 68 points for this. And you're like, what?
Here, if you get 15 points, you're like, yes!
Yeah, it's about 18 is the highest, 19. It's truncated for sure, and it feels that way. It sort of plays out that way, where +5 here, plus 8 is a huge deal, and I think I like that better. It's less wild, and it feels more manageable in a way. The other games, sometimes you draw a card, and it's like, well, there's the game. That's it. I can't. No, this is impossible. No one can beat this. Or vice versa. No one can beat that thing. What did you think of the tags thing? Because that's the new main thing also in this one. The original game, there's none of this sort of tags business, symbols. It's this card is this much, and +5 for each other wizard, or -3 if with any whatever. But that's it. It's all text-based and name-based.
I think the tags change it, but it's really the same. Instead of saying in the original one was like 10 for every weather you have, or 10 for every monster, now it's 10 it's smaller. Like 3 for every, whatever those symbols, like red symbol or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. And at the end of the game, I spread them out and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Now they have an app that scores the original game for you.
What?
You just type in all the cards and it tells you your score.
Oh, jeez, we need that stat.
I want that for this, too. Although this is easier to add up than the original one.
It is. What I said in the overview is you should, first of all, tally your blanked cards so you're not making that mistake. And then figure out any cards that give you extra symbols. That would be your next step. And then go from there. If they had an app for this that would score it for you, though, I have to tell you, that's like a whole half a point at least extra. Because the scoring is kind of a pain. It's a little bit of a pain.
Well, they might make one. Like I said, they made one for the original game.
They probably will, and just be aware of that. Right now, scoring is a little problematic. It's only 7 cards, but there's a lot of this and that and the other thing.
So you actually see, I actually don't even use the sheet. I just add them up in my head. But
really, well, not all of us have your capabilities.
No, but I can see. I was going to say, I thought the sheet makes it easier, though.
It does, absolutely. You write them down as you go, but you do need to take into account there's usually a little sort of backtracking where you hit a card that's your 5th card and you go, oh wait, they should have given me an extra symbol for this thing I scored card 2. Scratch that out. Now it's 8 points instead of 4 or whatever. If there was an app, it'd be much better. I really like the theme.
I do. I think we're like reaching Marvel overflow on themes.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting mix of characters. Like usually,
let me say everybody. X-Men.
Right. Usually it's Avengers. Here it's Avengers and X-Men, and they kind of just picked and chose. Like there's some big names.
Yeah.
From the Avengers that aren't in here. And there's some big name X-Men that aren't in there because they don't have that much room. It's a pretty small deck. But having Bruce Banner transform into the Hulk that makes thematic sense. And Thor is better with Mjolnir. That stuff actually makes the theme help the game. As opposed, again, I don't want to keep comparing this to the original, but in the original, I can't remember everything. But it's like if you have the princess, the bell, and the door, 100 points. Great, but what does that mean? Here, Mjolnir being with Thor, I was like, got it. That makes sense. That's easy for me to remember. Of course, if you're not a Marvel fan, that's going to mean nothing to you.
If you're not a Marvel fan, this is probably an easy game to avoid. I mean, it's got Marvel all over it for one thing, and you can get a game that's pretty similar with a different theme you might like better. Star Trek for one, though I haven't played that. You didn't really like it, but you might like it. You'll forgive a lot. If you like Star Trek, then you might like that one. And the original one is that sort of generic fantasy, but you might like that game better. If you like Marvel, though, and I'm not saturated with it like you are, I haven't found myself sort of going, oh, another Marvel-themed game. I haven't had that problem. I really liked it in this one. I thought it like you said, good combos, neat artwork to pull from, because there's so much Marvel artwork, so the game looks good. And the couple of little things they did here, like the cards that transform, turn upside down if you have the stats, to do that. That's a cool idea. There's only a few of those cards, but they'll have, I don't think I showed this in the overview, but they'll have, a few cards, like you said, Hulk, and there's Jean Grey. So Jean Grey there has a few tags worth 3 points, but then if you have 2 other of these mutant symbols, you flip the card over. Now it's the Phoenix with more points and more tags. That's it. You just keep it in your hand, and if you have that, whoop, you flip it around.
And it feels good, too, when you do that. You're like, ah, ha, ha, I've transformed them.
Yeah, that's a cool little twist. It's a small thing. I like this one. So, what do you got? Final thoughts from you, then.
All right, I like this game. I love Fantasy Realms. And so this is more on the lines of an alternative Fantasy Realms than Star Trek was. This feels like a sidestep from that, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
My only caveat that I'm not happy with this, and of course I have to go back and revisit if this affected Fantasy Realms, is I think this game is not very good with 5 to 6. You can play like 2 turns if you're not careful.
Sure.
The game can end before you've done anything. It's better at smaller counts. It's still a fast game. I like that. You don't make a ton of decisions in the game. Right. But with a lot of players, it goes up to 6. I wonder if there's even a way for you to have taken 1 card over the course of the game. That just seems weird to me. Maybe it's 2, but it's not going to be that many.
It's 6 cards. 10 cards out ends it, so you might get to go once. Yeah, if you're
I guess that seems weird to me. And if they just said, okay, with 6 players, it's 20 cards, okay, and I'm back on board. And that could probably be changed, but that's my only caveat. Other than that, it's very fast. It's very easy to teach. It's almost the kind of game you're like, here, let's just play as we go. Take a card, draw one. Look at the cards, see how they score. And people sit there, look at the cards, and it will kind of click in their own head.
Yes.
And this theme will bring some people on at the very, very boring, generic Fantasy Realms and name. And I asked what Remix means, but also who cares? It's a cool name. Sounds like a ride at Universal Studios. I'm going to go on the Remix. So I like it a lot. I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
I like it a lot too. I'm actually giving it a 7.5, but
I love it is what I meant.
That's what you meant. I merely enjoy it. It's 7.5. I like it better than Fantasy Realms. I don't know if you
I'm
do
not
too.
convinced, but Fantasy Realms has a very good expansion.
Okay, I haven't played that. But core box to core box, I like this theme better for sure. And yes, I know some people are going to scoff at that. What theme? The pictures on the cards. Just like Fantasy Realms, you know? I like that better. I like the couple of little twists. I agree it does not scale well. I mean, that's crazy. I don't want to play with more than 3, maybe 4. Honestly. This is a good 2-player game, 3-player game, and you're good to go. You can dig through the cards to see more things, to build better combos. But with those things in mind, and this theme in mind, I really like it. And I'm not fatigued by this kind of game. I enjoy this. But you have to like these combinatorial sort of, now I'm saying words like you would, kinds of card games, and if you do that and like this theme, I think you'll like it. So yeah, 7.5 from me, 8 from you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a seal of approval from us for Marvel Remix, and that's going to do it for this one. My name is Z Garcia.
I'm Tom Vasel.
We'll see you on the next one.